Hello and welcome back to Raw 12:51 AM's coverage of the Warwick SU Spring Elections. I'm here with Enaya and a candidate for welfare and campaigns. And today we're just going to be running through some questions about why she wants to take the role for the next academic year. So Enaya, to start, what are your key priorities?
Hi. Okay, so my main priorities for this year would be to make campus safer for all by implementing Safe Zone, which is an app, and it essentially what it does is help you reach emergency services when you need them and the specific service that you do need. Because at the moment, it all just goes to community safety, and there's a huge time lag between when a person reports an emergency and when they get help for it. My second priority would be make life on campus more affordable. So tackle the cost of living crisis, which I'm part of the working group at the SU currently as well. Mitigate its effects on students and also expand the end period poverty campaign to all accessible bathrooms on campus. Third would be sort of improve the efficiency of well-being, including reducing waiting times for appointments and uh, launching a campaign for men's mental health as well. Also focusing on advisors for domestic violence, sexual abuse, and harassment. And fourth would be to
Yeah,
support clubs and societies in their campaigns.
yeah. And how specifically would you seek to improve mental health and well-being on campus?
Um, right. So, for well-being, I think they have a massive shortage in terms of counselors as well as domestic abuse advisors. I think they just have one at the moment. So I'd really push for increased funding because the university has the funds. They just need to use them and allocate them where students actually need them. So I'd strongly lobby for increased funding, focusing on domestic abuse, sexual assault, and sexual harassment as well, which affects everyone on campus, from what I've heard and seen.
And as part of that, what more would you do to tackle any cases of any increasing cases of spiking both on and off campus?
Spiking is a very it's horrifying as a crime, of course, and we've tried to tackle it as best as we can, but I think there's a lot more we can do. So firstly, I'd look at the root of the problem, which is sort of the culture, and I'd look at sort of shifting the rape culture at work and just tackling that essentially, because that is a huge problem. Casual misogyny to rape jokes, everything needs to be, I think, taken with a pinch of salt here. So I launched a campaign focusing on a culture shift and then also just to prevent violence and to prevent spiking and just handle sort of the situation if it ever occurs would be to provide glass covers, drink covers, I think, and spiking tests at the bar as well as having a permanent welfare stand at every copper rooms event. Additionally, for off campus, Will and I have both talked to Good Night Out campaign, which sort of helps certify external clubs and pubs essentially. But I think that we could push for a better one as well, just to make sure that spiking is being taken very seriously at those outlets.
Yeah. And what are the biggest issues regarding accommodation, and how would you solve these as part of your role?
I think there are a variety of issues that we see when it comes to accommodation. I think the first thing that people see is the prices because they have increased year on year, even during the cost of living crisis. So just like at face value, I'd say tackle that, have a price cap, just freeze prices, or I would prefer to lower them, um, just to make the cost of living crisis easier for students. Because even with national with their loans, it's just not feasible to afford the weekly rent that the university charges. And additionally, I'd say RLTs as well. I feel like I would negotiate with them to sort of have a better understanding of what they need, what kind of support they need, and train them better, essentially to act as welfare representatives for the university. Um, yeah.
Yeah. And how would you build upon current work to improve transport, especially for students off campus? It's obviously been a big issue this year.
Yeah, it happened to me this morning as well. 20 minutes for Stagecoach. It was great. Uh, yeah. So current work, what we've done is Will has launched the sort of student feedback survey on bus and transport and Stagecoach specifically, as well as National Express. I would use that data from that survey and all the student experiences and negotiate very strongly for better services and more regular buses, as well as having lower prices essentially for the termly bus passes. I think right now what they've done is they've already implemented a 4 quid a day maximum, but I think we can go further with that, especially for university work students.
Yeah. And how would you ensure the welfare of students that may be suffering through the current cost of living crisis?
In addition to the points I just mentioned, I would I would provide free breakfast and free breakfast, sorry, in the green room, subsidized food by SU outlets, and a free shop as well for students to use at their leisure. A free shop essentially we could set up in the atrium or somewhere in the SU building, and it would essentially enable, I guess, zero waste and just a nice cycle of goods that, like, say, third years wouldn't need, but first years desperately need. And I think it would provide like a really nice way of mitigating the impact of certain like furniture costs and fixed costs. And it would actually help students as soon as they come into campus and they can see that the university actually cares about them.
Yeah.
I'd also
And obviously,
negotiate. Sorry,
sorry.
sorry, just halfway through my point. Um, uh, Again, for Stagecoach, I'd also negotiate with local districts and their councils because the university actually does have a lot of pull there. And also involving senior management, as I am doing currently, to make end period poverty a permanent solution, and actually get a contract done with Grace and Green. So instead of having it volunteer run, we can have it run by the university.
Yeah. And obviously the role is welfare and campaigns. So what campaigns would you seek to run over the next year?
Okay, so well, I have a lot in mind, but my main focus is going to be on sort of tackling the rape culture on campus. That's been a problem since before I was here. It's been a problem while I was here. And I think something desperately needs to change. We need to have an awareness-based campaign and just focusing on tackling casual misogyny that can lead to horrific acts of violence and gender-based violence as well. Also, I would extend the cost of living crisis, which just support for students, as Tommy and Kieran have done this year. Also, I'd go for a mental health support essentially campaign and just raise awareness about the stigmas that people face, especially men, and also how accessible well-being is to students who aren't aware of it. So, for example, international students aren't usually aware of how easy it is to, well, not easy, apologies, how well-being is there for them, and it is an option, and there is no shame in that.
And one final question, what makes you stand out from other welfare and campaigns officer candidates?
All right, I think all the candidates are brilliant, and I've read the manifestos, they're doing really well. But I think one thing that I have is this past year when I've been a part-time officer at the Students' Union as women's officer, and I've been heavily involved in welfare and campaigns. And I've run 2 completely different campaigns of my own, and I've seen how it works from start to finish. And I believe that I can do this on a grander scale, given more time and a full-time opportunity. So, for example, this year I've worked with Report and Support, I've worked with Community Safety, I've worked with university senior management, and I've actually made progress with them. I've lobbied for the introduction of Safe Zone. I've actually gotten Report and Support to give community safety's team sexual assault and harassment prevention training, and that's already in the works right now. Spoken to states and community safety to get more streetlights on campus, which is also in the works. That report is actually being sent over to states this week. I've worked with the VP Sports and combat sports clubs on campus to introduce self-defense classes, which have been really well received and popular with women and non-binary students. Been on the cost of living crisis, and I've actually done work for end period poverty as I'm getting reusable products and making them available to people who actually struggle to afford them, which according to the survey for my campaign is over 30% of the moment. And that's just a few things off the top of my brain.
Yeah, so thank you to Enaya for taking part in the interview. Obviously, we do have interviews with a lot of the other candidates, so make sure to go check them out and make sure to vote now. Voting is open, and make sure to vote for your next Warwick SU Student Union team.
Thank you.